The Minnesota Timberwolves, they got one on the board towards this trophy just a couple of days ago here. But if you're really quiet, UD, can you hear it? Can you hear Stephen A. Smith still celebrating down the streets here in Minnesota in solidarity
dancing, eating ice cream.
New York faithful, because this is what happened in Indiana last night. This is when you thought they had us in the first half. Not gonna lie. Karl-Anthony Towns, he drives. This was actually a whistle on Halliburton, but after a review, you see Towns pushed off here. The Knicks committed 16 fouls in the first 13-0 run after Towns went to the bench with his third foul.
You're giving people what they want. They are the best fast break scoring team, transition team in basketball, and they're playing with emotions on their sleeve. But then guess what? The Knicks eventually said a little bit, hold my beer. But
an important moment here in the third quarter with the pace. You can see right there, he would return, but he would miss big minutes here in the game. So UD to the fourth quarter we go. Karl-Anthony Towns, he entered the fourth quarter, as you can see, just 4 points, 2 of 8.
We don't worry about Cat when he's not making shots. We just worry about Cat being aggressive and staying in the game defensively.
This brings us to the play of the game brought to you by...
Yeah, he's the best shooting big man in basketball, but also the best driving. He does not dribble often because he finishes with force.
We know how the rest of that close-up ended.
We don't need to talk about
that. Big play here with the Knicks up by 1. Jalen Brunson commits the blocking foul. That gives Brunson his 5th. Vega, Karl-Anthony Towns, 20 in the fourth quarter. They're the second most by a Knicks player in the fourth quarter of a playoff game in the last 25 years. That's what that base is saying here. So Brunson would re-enter the game with just a lot of friendly and improbable bounces here. Maybe they were due for one not to go. This one didn't, and New York is on the board. They get the win 106-100 here. Now, the Knicks, they have a knack for overcoming big leads this postseason. They're the first team to win 3 games after trailing by 20 or more in a single playoff run. New York needed that to avoid falling behind 3 games to none and virtually ending their season. Here's Tibbs earlier today on the heroic performance he got from his big man.
The guy's averaged a lot of points all season long, so I don't think it's anything new. It's his body of work is what it is, and he's been a really good player in the league for a long time. So, as has Mikhail and Ochi. So we've got some primary scorers that can play, off the ball, with the ball. You can go to them, and then the game will dictate what we do.
It can make or break teams when you're going through things like that. And I think obviously what we did last night definitely helps us. And we saw that we were on the brink of it looking pretty dark for us. And the way we responded, I think it brings us closer together.
That availability coming from an undescript basement somewhere.
I like it.
Here was the cover of the New York Post this morning, though. It reads, "Chokes on you." A picture of Karl-Anthony Towns, though. Sinead, there are the types of performances you do not forget. I do not think we will be forgetting this one from Cat anytime soon. What stood out to you the most?
Karl-Anthony Towns, Big Cat, finally found his claws. He finally found his claws in the fourth quarter. Again, 20 points in that frame, matching the entire Pacers squad. But there are a few plays that I truly loved with how he was aggressive, and it was on both ends of the floor. So as I take you to the tape, first of all, he secures the rebound right here. All right, nobody's there for the outlet, so he's pushing the ball. He has vision. Most people are so worried about his three-point shot when he crosses over half court. What does he do? He keeps his eyes up. He finds the one right available. The paint is wide open, throws a dime. 22 out of 26 points scored or assisted by Cat. Now let's get to his bag. This play was great because what you notice is that without Brunson on the floor, oftentimes they found this solution that they use even with him in the matchups. Right? They're posting up their big guards, which allows Cat to be a shooter. You sleep on him. Brunson, you have to follow him on the perimeter, which leads to the massive dunk and, of course, the stare down, and we saw what happened after that, too. But last but not least, on this play, I love this because he's essentially playing point guard. They're going to set a screen for your 5, your big man. Now, the problem here is you go under the screen. Now you're forcing Pascal Siakam to really rush the shooter, and you had a 2 contest, possibly even a foul, and he knocks down the 3. He was unconscious. He had a great fourth quarter, and that will need to carry over. But I said earlier, was on both ends of the floor. Look at what he did defensively as well. Wow. 3 for 14. That's what he held his opponents for shooting, 21%. Look at the comparisons there. Games 1 and 2, they scored 20 points on him, and game 3, only 7. So a lot of people are very critical on his consistency, but at least we knew Jalen Brunson could be a closer. Now we're seeing that Cat can be as well.
Yeah, this was huge for Cat, and I really think that Tibbs stumbled upon something accidentally here with this lineup here.
Right.
This lineup with Hart, this lineup with McBride, you have Wright, you have Cat, and you also have Shaman. This is a lineup that they haven't shown before. So I think if you're a team that hasn't seen this before, you kind of fall into the habits of guarding those guys the same way you guarded those other guys. If I have Wright, if I have Shaman, well, he can make shots. I have McBride, but I'm in the paint. I'm taking away everything. There's got to be anybody but Cat with that lineup in the game, and I'm making other guys beat me.
When you say UD stumbled on it, he was really looking around because in this game, the Knicks used 15 different lineups. Okay, that in itself is unheard of for a playoff game. 7 of the 15 lineups that they used, they had never used before. Absolutely unheard of in a playoff game, especially what is a de facto elimination game. So it's not surprising that the Pacers were looking around a little bit going, where are we supposed to go? It wasn't like he wanted to do this necessarily. Some of it was he introduced some new players off the bench. Some of it was foul trouble, let him go like that. This was a completely unpredictable game, which is what Jalen Brunson said afterward.
Right, that foul trouble that Towns and Brunson got into, it led to Tibbs really getting in his bag and having to go deep in his lineup here, and it gave the Indiana Pacers some trouble. Maybe those guys were not on the scouting report. Let's take a listen to Tyrese Halliburton on just that.
You know, with other guys playing, you know, those are, I think those, especially all 4 of the guys who played off the bench are really defensive guys, you know, and they come in and wreak havoc. And I thought we just didn't do a good job of, you know, continuing to play fast.
Well, they had a lot of their better defenders in the game in the second half, and that makes it harder. And so, you know, you've got to grind defensively to get rebounds, and there's a different element of grinding when you're going against their better guys.
It's not a total surprise. The Knicks have been really good on the road this postseason. But, Brian, that was a really easy quote to miss from Rick Carlisle, but it told you a whole lot. Can you just repeat what he said and why that's so
basically
important?
What Halliburton and Carlisle said was they didn't have Brunson and Cat on the court together at the same time. Because while that group is awesome offensively, they are both all-NBA players. I want to be very clear. I am not suggesting, nor was I think the Pacers suggesting that they are better when they're off. However, the way Indiana is attacking them defensively, if you have 2 players on your team at the same time that are issues defensively, you have trouble stopping teams. The Pacers were scoring at will, attacking those 2 guys down the stretch of this game. And by the way, Tibbs knew that. You want to know how I knew he knew that? Because he didn't bring Brunson back till there was like a minute and a half left in the game. Because what was working in Game 3 was that lineup with Cat being the only weak defender and the lead offensive player.
Yeah, and what's interesting as well when you think about the Pacers, you know, their signatures is literally their name, the pace, but it's also their passing.
Right.
In that fourth quarter, you know, actually leading it up into the 12 playoff games, they've been averaging around 29 assists. In that fourth quarter, they only had 1 assist. And I was watching, and I was like, this is half court. This is stagnant. That was an issue for them. That was their lowest assist quarter since like 2014 in a playoff game. So to me, it's the identity that they lost down the stretch.
Yeah, and we have to give credit to guys like DeLon Wright and Shaman. Shaman was plus 12 last night in 11 minutes, and DeLon Wright down 0-2 on the road. That's a tough situation to step in and hold forth. So those guys did their job, but they're going to have to figure out, because they can't go to that lineup again. There's no way in hell they can go to that lineup again. It's going to work.
They're going to have to figure out something to do here in Game 4. But it does feel a little bit different now. Okay, they get 1 on the road. Even if they get Game 5, they've taken back
so
some
Neesmith's ankle, questionable for tomorrow.
Absolutely.
That is a big X factor going into this game.
His questionable for tomorrow. That's something we're going to keep an eye on here. We do have a developing story. Good news for the Halliburton family.
Then when we standing on business, I'm a big stepper, underground method.
It's an Edwards eruption here in the first.
Rolling through the city with the big dogs.
It's a Minnesota tsunami here in Game 3.
Got punched in the mouth today, and next game we're either going to get back up or not. But we have a decision to make for sure.
We know this team, OKC, going to come out and bring hella energy, so we'll be ready.
Well, they were ready in Game 3. The Timberwolves, they made a statement on their home floor, winning by 42 points, scoring a franchise playoff record 72 points in the first half and another 71 in the second, en route to a franchise record 143 points for the game. Now, their 42-point win, it's the 5th largest win by a team trailing in a series in NBA history, also tied for the largest win versus the team with the best regular season record in the NBA in playoff history. Here's our Tim Legler on Julius Randle's bounce-back game.
Well, Minnesota with a great response getting back into this series, and more importantly, getting their offense untracked against an elite defense. Able to do some things in Game 3 they could not get accomplished in Oklahoma City. Anthony Edwards had a great start, and then Julius Randle got unleashed starting in the second quarter with his own mini run. And we're going to take a look at a little bit of that right here and how he was able to finally see the ball go in after a very quiet game 2. I love his aggressiveness, attacking. He's guarded with smaller defenders a lot in this series, and he sees it again right here. And he's going to jab. He's trying to get to the center of the floor, but he's waiting to see, are either one of these elbow defenders going to force the ball out of his hands? They do not. So now he knows with that size advantage, he can just go right up over the top. He gets one to go, and you know he's feeling good because the very next possession, Julius Randle is the last guy up the floor for Minnesota, and he decides he's going to give a little heat check of his own. This is one of the deepest shots you're going to see Julius Randle take, regular season or postseason. Right off the catch, he sees there's no closeout coming his way. The defender's certainly not expecting him to shoot the ball from 30+, but that's exactly what he does. Gets this one to go on a night when Minnesota was able to knock down 23-point shots, put up a huge number on the league's best defense, and feel really good about their chances now in this series.
Tim Legler is always insightful. I didn't know that Cartoon Tim was as insightful as Big Legs is here. But Sinead, Minnesota, they figured something out here in this game 3. What was that magic?
Look, I love a good strength-on-strength matchup. You have Anthony Edwards, all-NBA offense, versus Lou Dort, all-NBA defense. And guess what? Offense won because it took a team. It took a village. They could not afford the T-Wolves a slow start, so what did they do? They ran floppy. First, Jaden McDaniels with a good screen. Rudy Gobert, underrated screener right here, getting Lou Dort, and this leads to a 3 to get Ant Edwards going in the beginning. Now watch this play because this is how committed Rudy was to screening to free up his shooters, right? That's one screen right here. Then here's another pin-in screen where Conley should normally be able to make this 3, but then it was a little bit of a lazy pass. It does not matter. They reset, and here's the third screen by Gobert. All right, your feet are outside if you're Hartenstein, but instead you drop behind the 3-point line. Lou Dort is trailing. Ant knocks down this 3. He made 5 on the night, shooting 60% on all NBA defensive Lou Dort, but this play tells me he got in his head. Rudy is screening, then there's some slapping, and then he hits another 3 on this type of possession. If you look at this, you know, it's hard when you're Ant trying to do bad all by yourself, but when you have a team and a system and you have guys like Rudy screening, it helps.
They also made it uncomfortable on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He had as many field goals as he had turnovers in this game here, UD. That's not something we're accustomed to seeing. How did they do that?
Yeah, the playoffs is chess, not checkers. So they made a small adjustment, but I think it's going to be the biggest adjustment that could possibly propel them to winning this series. So we talk about here right now, where they're picking up right now is they're so far up right now. We understand SGA is a hell of a basketball player, and sometimes you want to wear on these guys, but he doesn't even sweat during the game anyway, so it doesn't matter. He has open elbows, the lane's wide open. He crosses the lane and gets to a spot. Right here, you see the adjustment being made right here.